Hi, everybody. Welcome back to The Reason We Learn. I'm Deb Philman, mom, homeschooler, educator. So, when I started this channel about, was it 4 or 5 months ago, I remember thinking to myself, surely all of this critical race theory, 1619 project, woke business will stay out of STEM. I mean, surely they know well enough to know that you can't do things like send landers to Mars and build effective computer programs or even maintain them, the things that make our society actually function, if you don't leave those areas of academic inquiry untouched by, mystical nonsense, basically, to put a fine point on it. And I was wrong. I was wrong. I really hoped that I would be right, but I was wrong. I suspected I was wrong about a month ago when people started actively defending the proposition that 2 plus 2 does not have to equal 4, and in fact that it is, closed-minded and even politically conservative. I mean, people were making it a political issue to insist that 2 plus 2 equals 4, and I couldn't believe what I was reading. First, I thought it was satire. I really did. Then I thought maybe they've just never read 1984. But then when I saw this going on for days and people not just defending it in theoretical terms, but really sticking to it like, if you argue with me, you're a bad person kind of thing, I started getting really nervous. And I realized, James Lindsay was right. James Lindsay's a mathematician, and he warned about this. He said this is going to go that far. And I remember even I thought, no, surely not, right? Just like I said. And here we are. And I'm looking at this MIT physics department page for Edmund Bertschinger, professor of physics. Research in theoretical astrophysics, physics education, and in equity, diversity, and inclusion in the physical sciences and engineering. Now I thought, surely he means bringing more people into the field who are still going to do it in an objective way, right? That's what he means, right? I don't know. Theoretical astrophysics, gravitation, cosmology, and numerical methods, social sciences, mixed methods investigation of cultural change in STEM. Why is this necessary? Okay. He puts his pronouns. He's a professor of physics. He's also affiliated faculty in the program in Women's and Gender Studies at MIT. Why does MIT have a Women's and Gender Studies department? This is the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. Why is that even necessary there? Do they really want to attract the best and the brightest from all over the world in STEM and technology areas to study gender studies? But why? I don't understand. So anyway, there's that. But moving right along, I'm not going to belabor this, but this making it more welcoming to, I don't understand why it's not welcoming. I don't get it. I mean, math is math and science is science. Physics is physics. Like, how, if you're not talking about the people, if you're not talking about the people in the discipline, like you're making your fellow professors or fellow students be more welcoming, MIT is not the whitest place in America by any stretch. I mean, you've got a lot of people who are Asian, Indian. You've got, people from all over the world go to MIT. Every continent is represented there. So I'm really at a loss to understand what's so unwelcoming. We need sweeping changes. So not just like minor tweaks to make people, make it more welcoming. We need major changes. And like I said, even then I thought maybe I'm misunderstanding something. Surely he doesn't mean they want to change the curriculum. I know I saw that 2 plus 2 equals, 5 and 6 and 3.5 and all kinds of other garbage on the internet a month ago, but they can't possibly, no, it can't be real. Please tell me it's not real. I felt like I was living in a nightmare. And then I found this. A pathway to equitable math instruction. The whole website is equitablemath.org. Resources and guidance to support Black, Latinx, and multilingual students to thrive in grades 6 through 8. A pathway to equitable math instruction is an integrated approach to mathematics that centers Black Latinx. By the way, they don't like being called that. Literally hate it. True. You're labeling people in a way they hate that is offensive to them. And multilingual students in grades 6 through 8 addresses barriers to math equity, like lousy teachers who focus on things that have nothing to do with learning math, and aligns instruction to grade level priority standards. Oh, grade level priority standards. How about what the student wants to learn and what the student is capable of learning, and making math more accessible in terms of making it more fun and contextualizing it into real world application, applied mathematics, where we actually need to use it, instead of thinking any of these kids is going to grow up to be a theoretical mathematician. Very few. And the ones who will identify themselves. I promise you, they will. They might, you might expose them to role models in the course of your instruction. Here's a theoretical mathematician and here's what he does. But really, for the most part, most of your students need to learn applied math. So aligning instruction to grade level priority standards it's not even, never mind. The pathway offers, and I'm going to stop for a second because I know some of you are confused. What does she mean? Isn't it important to have grade level priority standards? Well, let's talk about what that is. Who decides what a grade level is and how do they do it? Do you know? No, you don't. Guess what? Neither do they. It's pretty arbitrary. They kind of figure it out as they go along, and they have a tendency to work backwards from how people are doing. So let's start there. Is that really how you want to measure what your child should learn? Or do you want to start teaching them math, and as they start learning the concepts and mastering the concepts, let them keep going as long as they want to keep going until they reach a point where they're like, yep, I'm done. I don't need to know any more math. And realistically, once you get past algebra, they probably don't. They probably don't. If they decide they're done and they're not going to be doing something with the rest of their life that involves math, you can back off now. You don't need to have a grade level standard. But if they do want to keep going, let them keep going and going and going and going. So if they're an 11-year-old and they want to end up doing, algebra 2, geometry, if they can make it all the way to pre-calc, because that's how their mind works. So what's their grade level standard? On the other hand, if they're in 4th grade and they still need a little extra help with their multiplication tables because it's just for some reason not clicking, what's their grade level standard? You catching on? Okay. See, the school would say slow. The school would say way too advanced. What are we going to do with this kid? And do nothing with that kid because they would assume it's theirs to do. So grade level. And then we have priority standards. What does that mean? Whose priorities? Who sets them and how? Do you know? No, you don't. Guess what? Neither do they. Again, usually working backwards. And I wanted to come back to that and stay there because I didn't want you to think I was just blowing it off like I don't know what it means. Nobody knows what it means. It's an ever-moving target. The pathway offers guidance and resources for educators to use now as they plan the curriculum, while also offering opportunities for ongoing self-reflection as they seek to develop an anti-racist math practice. Why are they doing that? Why are they doing it? This presupposes that math is racist. There's something about math that's already racist. We got to be anti-racist within the math practice. Why? I would think this would be like your least racist place because how many different opinions are you expressing about the math problem? I just don't understand why this is even necessary. And they don't explain it yet. Maybe we'll find out. Offering opportunity, blah, blah, blah. The toolkit strides serve as multiple on-ramps for educators as they navigate the individual and collective journey from equity to anti-racism. There's no collective journey. There's no such thing. We travel this road alone. We collaborate with others. We negotiate with others. We interact with others. We learn from others. But we are not on a collective journey. Our journey is our own. The minute somebody starts talking about collective journeys, I know they're talking about restrictions on my progress. No, thank you. Same with your child. Then we have the 5 strides to math equity. Dismantling racism in mathematics. Oh boy. Exercises for educators to reflect on their own biases to transform their instructional practice. Maybe one of your biases is that you need to do this in the first place, that you assume that children, I'm assuming of color, are not capable of just doing math the way it's been done for millennia. Maybe you think you need to do something different because they're not really, the way you were doing it before isn't working and they're not achieving at the level the school says they should, et cetera, passing all the standardized tests you're giving them, really, really bored in class, whatever. And you're deciding it's a race thing. instead of a maybe you suck at teaching thing. Or maybe you're not teaching math in a way that makes any sense to them. It's not contextualized. It's not applied. It's not theirs to learn. It's yours to teach. And you're trying to like drill a hole in their head and put it in there and it's not sticking. And you're making it about race because that conveniently hides your lack of skill. Fostering, but you put fancy words and it makes it, sound really academic. Fostering deep understanding, methods for deepening content understanding and relevance through crafted math discussions. When you have to craft a discussion for the students, first of all, you can't. Good luck with that. You tried doing that in all the other ways you tried teaching where you were crafting and mantling and now you're dismantling what you mantled and all this other stuff. How about you stop trying to craft things for people and instead scaffold so they can discover things on their own or facilitate or mentor or contextualize. I know you're going to hear that word a lot on this channel, but I'm sorry, but all knowledge exists in context. Like it's irrelevant. Math is literally irrelevant unless it relates to something in the real world, especially to most students who are going to look at these little symbols on a page and go, what? Unless it means something to them because they have a mathematically agile brain, as some people do, just like some people are very verbal, etc. But for the vast majority of students, if you don't explain to them why they need to know this, they're not going to really understand why they need to know this. Creating conditions or their environments and practices to support students' social, emotional, and academic development. Are you going to go into their home and provide them with 2 loving parents who are there for them when they get home from school or just there for them all the time and interested in what they're learning and supportive of what they're learning? No, can't do that. Guess what? You can't do anything in the classroom. And certainly I don't understand what this has to do with math. Connecting critical intersections, the interconnectedness of English language learning and the development of mathematical thinking. Yeah, that's true. That might be relevant, but also probably not necessary. If you're going to spend a lot of time on this outside of the English class, you're probably going to bore them to tears. So how about you just teach them to read really, really well and use language yourself effectively when you're teaching math, and then maybe it will be okay. Sustaining equitable practice, coaching structures that support math educators in their ongoing centering of equity principles. I suppose we could look at this, but I don't want to download them on my machine. And then we have these deep dive sessions developed by a team of teachers, instructional coaches, researchers, blah, blah, acknowledgments. Oh, California, 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 California. You starting to see a trend? Now it makes perfect sense. And then let's go to Purdue. Now we have science, but this is the Department of Mathematics, okay, at Purdue University, in case you thought it was just California and some esoteric little organization and I was making a mountain out of a molehill. Let's take a gander at what they've got over at Purdue. Okay. Since the summer of 2020, I have facilitated a reading group in this department focused on anti-racism. In order to keep track of everything we've read and will read, I maintain this list. Everything in it is worth reading. Numbered entries have been read. I think I went over some of this in a prior video, but I really want you to look at some of these titles, okay? Because it goes on. We've got all kinds of stuff. And on this list, will you look at this? Ethnomathematics and the limits of culture. Essentialism and experience. Goodbye to Pythagoras. And then we have some books, of course. See, these are all articles that people have written. Let's look at the books. Of course, what's at the tippy top? How to be an anti-racist, white fragility, blind spot, asked and answered, are prisons obsolete, teaching to transgress, etc. Taking a knee in mathematics education. I think you get the gist of this. I'll put the link in the description box. You can look at it some more. And then we have an article written by one of my locals members, Gina, I hope I'm not mispronouncing your name. Loneliness Limits Learning in Online Education. Now, she is a science tutor and teacher, and she's helped create science curricula before. She's been working with students online and talking about the loneliness of it. And this particular article talks about how it's very lonely to learn, in an online environment, especially when you're learning science, that the interaction of people is really important. But one thing I wanted to share with you that she shared with us in Locals is that her students, by and large, are coming to her for tutoring, not because partly because they miss that interaction, but the symptom of them missing the interaction is they're just looking for answers. They don't even know how to engage anymore in a conversation about the subject matter. All they know how to do is listen to somebody give them information and then take down what they think they need for the test. And I mean, this is an age-old problem. You probably thought about it when you were in school. But she's getting kids signing on and saying, okay, so what's the answer to number 2? And when she doesn't give it to them, or she spends an extra amount of time trying to explain it so they actually understand the answer and she's not just doing their homework for them, they get frustrated. They get literally angry with her because she's not just giving them the answer. And this is in science. So you would think that in an area like science, kids, even if it's an assigned class, they do want to actually understand it. I mean, with all the talk lately in the news of the science, we got to follow the science. And I would like to propose to you that they're not doing it. They're not doing it in math. They're not doing science. They're not doing English. There's not a single subject in the American public school or even in private schools right now where kids are getting a solid foundation and learning is an important activity for you personally as an individual, not to just spit back for the teacher, not to just get your diploma, not to just finish this grade and move on. We make this such a transactional arrangement where it's like, okay, I'll give you the answers and you give me the thing, you give me the A, and then I move on to the next thing and then you give me the next thing. And they think that's it. That's the thing they're getting, not an education. And it's happening, like I said, it's happening in science too. It's so sad because where we end up after we've decolonized math and science and all of STEM and basically destroyed any ability to understand these disciplines and use them effectively in our daily lives is we end up with people who can easily be led, fooled, lied to, etc., about important things like, oh, I don't know, the progression of a virus through a population, how we mitigate the transmission of a virus, what kind of standards we should use when making policy to mitigate the transmission of a virus. When we have people who don't understand the scientific method of inquiry, when we've been focusing more on how they feel in their science class and then what they do to perform for us like little trained seals on a test, we end up with people who are not just illiterate in terms of reading and innumerate in terms of numbers, but they can't even think. Thinking is a scientific discipline, really. If I don't already know it, I have to approach something with a certain hypothesis, like, I wonder what this is about. Well, I think it's about this. Well, let's test that out. I'm going to find out. Oh, you know what? It wasn't about that at all. I have negated it. Now I found other evidence, but oh, you know what it was? I've confirmed it. Now I move on. Everything we do when we learn is using that method. And newsflash, it's not divorced from emotion. It's not divorced from compassion or all the other soft skills that, people say, oh, well, if you're only going to do that, then you're not concerned about their feelings. Of course we are. If I'm working with a student and the student has a lot of anxiety around, let's say, math, if it's an elementary student, they have a lot of anxiety. I'm not good at this. I don't know what to do. Obviously, I want to make them feel comfortable in their own skin and with their own abilities, or the material's not going to be accessible. So I get that. But we don't want to stay there. That's not your destination. That's not a place you want to hang out. And especially in a classroom with multiple people, if that's the delivery system, because what if the other kids are ready to move on? What are you doing? You were hamstringing them. These kids should be able to move at their own pace with something like math and science. Well, actually with everything, but especially here when their interest is piqued, let them go. That's how we get things like vaccines. Okay. So yes, I want to make them feel comfortable, but part of how you make someone feel comfortable is by modeling your own comfort level with the material. If you approach the material as, this is terribly racist, and I know it comes from Greek people and they're very, very white. Are you helping that person feel more comfortable, or are you helping them feel more frustrated and anxious? You're literally making it inaccessible, or you're telling them this is something they maybe shouldn't even want to learn because, by bad people created this. So you've not helped anybody with anything. And you've certainly not eliminated the loneliness factor of learning online. Learning online doesn't have to be lonely. Learning online can be incredibly inspiring and illuminating and can put you in touch with people all over the world in every conceivable discipline. You can talk to the very best people in their fields so easily. You otherwise would never be able to get in a room with them. You might be able to engage with them through a chat or just watch a webinar. It doesn't have to be lonely. Loneliness, I think, is partly because, we're physically separated. That is a component. But really, it's more about feeling alone in your own way of thinking. If you feel like you're the only person who's interested in something or thinking a certain way, or if nobody really supports you in your unique way of looking at things and pursuing your own interests, that's a very lonely place to be. And that doesn't mean we should validate everything either. I think people think the opposite of loneliness is that you get perpetual validation. Some thoughts that you have, some feelings that you have should not be validated because they're not grounded in reality. They're not fact-based. If you're feeling lonely because you feel like, well, everybody hates me because somebody told me that everybody's racist and I'm scared and I don't want to leave my house and I don't want to learn this because I was told everybody in this discipline is very racist and I'm very lonely. Don't validate that. Say, well, I'm very sorry you feel that way. Let's look at how untrue that is, starting with me or whatever. I mean, you don't need to validate every feeling someone has to help them feel more comfortable. And that's the problem I have with this whole decolonize and focus on equity and all this is this is pandering. And it is actually, in my personal opinion, designed, if not intentionally, and I'm inclined to think it is a little bit intentional, to keep people away from this and to keep people somewhat ignorant so you can put things over on them and acquire more power and get more money in the really dishonest way. But if it's not that, if it's well-intentioned, it's completely misguided and not grounded in reality either. And when we continue to teach generations of people things that are not grounded in reality and have no basis in, in fact, that intentionally move away from objectivity and the scientific method as we've understood it, I don't care how awesome the goal is. If there's no evidence it's going to get you there, and in fact, there's a mountain of evidence that it's going to hinder you on your way to any goal, and the only place it's going to take you is confusion, anger, frustration, resentment, and ignorance, you need to throw it away. I don't care what your intentions are. This is bad for kids. This is bad for adults. You're not going to get mature, critical thinking, successful people out of this. So I guess the point of this video is twofold. One, yes, it's invaded STEM. You cannot escape. So if you're thinking, well, my kid's interested in STEM, I can send them to university, it's going to be okay. No, sorry, hate to tell you that. Not going to be okay. It has invaded STEM. And the second thing I want to tell you is that this is just yet another reason that we as parents have to, get between our kids and these kinds of methodologies, this kind of pedagogy. It is poison. When you sell, all the material you need is out there to help your child with self-directed learning so they can avoid this nonsense and learn and grow and thrive and not ever have anybody get in their way like this is going to get in their way. So I guess that's the point, but thank you for watching. Sorry I always bring you such bad news. Well, I think it's good. There's good news that you can still homeschool, self-direct learn. We'll get there. I'll help you get there. By the way, tonight's Zoom call for my locals community. If you're not yet a member, please come over and join. And I hope to see you this evening, 7 p.m. Eastern. You can get there through my locals if you are a supporter. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.